Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Wednesday, and all of our guests today brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. Canucks over the Stars by a score of 5-2. They're in Arizona tomorrow, Mullet Arena.
Yep.
All 5,000 seats to take on the Coyotes. Jeff Paterson joining us now from Sekeres and Price and the Rink-Wide podcast. Jeff, thanks for doing this. How are you?
I'm good. That's on my bucket list. I mean, I traveled the NHL for 3 years. Obviously, the Coyotes weren't playing at the Mullet, but everybody that I've talked to that's been there just raves about the experience. Canucks, one of the last teams to experience life at on the campus of ASU, so they'll get that tomorrow. And then they're back there. Game 82 of the regular season at the Mullet. Man, that could be high-stakes hockey for draft lottery odds.
Well, you mentioned everybody raving about it. I would imagine, and there were a lot of Calgary fans there last night.
Yeah,
it would be the equivalent of seeing a big band, a big rock band at the Commodore in a small venue. I think it'd be fun. I think it could be bucket list for some people. That's just me.
Well, and it's spring break too, although tickets are hard to come by. So, but I would imagine, I mean, Canuck fans travel well wherever they are. I always saw that when I was out on the road, and I would imagine they'll find a way to get their hands on some tickets. So, you'll probably see some blue and green at the Mullet tomorrow night.
5-2 Canucks over the Stars. Andrei Kuzmenko gets his 33rd. And with a lot of talk about him recently and, that event at Pastime Sports and doing more interviews these days. I know you tweeted about that, how much more comfortable he looks and sounds doing those interviews. But 33 goals, what effect do you think Rick Tocchet has had on him, Jeff, especially when we look back a couple of weeks and the fact that he sat him at times?
Yeah, Donnie, I think the real impact has been the addition of Sergey Gonchar. Obviously, Rick Tocchet's the head coach, but I don't think that we can underestimate what having a countryman. And look, Kuzmenko has adapted remarkably well, and what a character and the personality for days, and the fans have loved him. And there was tough love there. Out of the All-Star break, there were the 3 consecutive games where, that was the talk in this town was, 10 minutes, 12 minutes of ice time. What are you doing with this guy? And as Rick Tocchet has said repeatedly, didn't pout, didn't slouch. Mm-hmm. And look at him now. You can't stop the guy. 33 on his way to 40 here with 16 games to go. But I do think that Sergey Gonchar coming in, and not just for Kuzmenko, but all of the Russians, it's just that ease and that comfort of having a countryman. There's still a language barrier as much as he tries. And the other day stood there in front of the cameras after a practice for 7.5 minutes. And, you saw the personality and the humor and everything else. But I'm sure in quiet times, there's just a real comfort for him to be able to go to a guy like Sergey Gonchar and speak in his mother tongue and get the answers that he's looking for, as opposed to, making sure that he's not missing something in translation. So I think that was really a shrewd move on the part of the Canucks. They brought Gonchar in for his defensive acumen and the fact that he's got championship pedigree. But man, when you're adding all the Russians to the roster here, I think that was a really good move on the part of the Vancouver Canucks.
Didn't pout, didn't slouch, unlike Nikita Trampkin. That's a story for another day. What do you like about Guillaume Brisebois, who finally gets his, and I say finally, it's just his 22nd NHL game, but he's been in the organization since 2015. What do you like about number 55 in Vancouver colors?
Just about everything right now. Like I love the stories of these guys, and so much focus at this level on the money they make and the star status. And sure, it's the stars that drive the business, but I've got all day for the underdog and the guy that battles, and again, another guy that didn't complain and probably wondered about his lot in life. And I'll tell you, I was there in Los Angeles on Valentine's Day 2019 when he made his NHL debut. And honestly, I didn't know if he was going to get a chance to play an NHL game. And here he is all these years later. And now he's on this run. And I think it's 11 or 12 on this call-up. And the goal is incredible. Like, good for him. There are a lot of guys that dream of scoring that as their first NHL goal. They'll tell the grandkids all these years later that they, got down on one knee and sniped it home. Like, what I liked about the goal is I'm talking about a guy that's feeling it right now. The fact, like, he is a stay-at-home defenseman, and Ricky mentioned it, like, his value to this team right now, a lot of it's been on the penalty kill. Like, he's done a really nice job as a stay-at-home guy, just minding the front of the net, plays simple hockey for the most part. The fact that he jumped up into the rush, he saw an opportunity and jumped at it, and then nils him on. Talk about another guy that's feeling it right now, laying off a spinning backhand dish pass right on the tape, and then Brisebois pulls the trigger like he's been doing that for 15 years. So These call-up guys, I know Rick Tocchet was quick to give praise to not just Jeremy Collett and the entire Abbotsford staff, but the player development system. Guys, doing this right now with 8 guys in the lineup that have touched the American Hockey League at some point this season. 3 of their 6 defensemen are what we would call American Hockey Leaguers who are looking to get an opportunity. And I say, Donnie, I thought about this in the aftermath of the game last night. And you'd have to go back to the Manitoba Moose days when you had Kessler and Burroughs and Bieksa and Yannick Hansen and Corey Schneider. But I would say in the last 15 years, last night might have been the best night in recent memory for the Vancouver Canucks in terms of the production they got at the NHL level from their American Hockey League affiliate. It was so dark in the Utica days, but all of a sudden to see the guys, I talked about Brisebois, I talked about Amon, Giuseppe scores a goal. Lannon had an assist, and then Noah Juleson had the hit of the night last night. So, I know the tank is look, that ship has sailed now. They're 14 points clear of Columbus. They're not finishing dead last. And the thing about all of this is they're doing it with 3 American Hockey League defensemen. 12 of the 18 skaters, I think, last night are making less than $1 million in this lineup right now. So, it's not like they've. At some point that should catch up to them. I guess that's been the biggest surprise for me is that with all this patchwork, that at some point I thought that the bottom would fall out for the Vancouver Canucks. But man, it shows you the strength of the goaltending they're getting from Thatcher Demko. The top of the lineup has been really productive, obviously. All those shorthanded goals that they've scored of late. And now we're starting to see support scoring as well. That's checking off a lot of boxes on the way to 5 straight victories.
You had a tweet about Brock Boeser this morning. I know everybody wants to see goals. The goals aren't there, but the assists are there. And you had Chris Kreider's got the same amount of points, Jeff. When you look at Brock and the season he's had and all the outside noise about the trade and everything, how would you sum up his season so far right now?
Yeah, and I used Kreider as an example because basically they're making the same amount of money.
Same money.
And Kreider's got 28 goals. And so I just asked the question, would people view Boeser's season differently if he had 28 goals and 45 points as opposed to 12 goals and 45 points? And the answer is yes, because we still all think of Brock Boeser as a sniper. And I think it is time to kind of look at him through a different prism. And sure, you'd like him to score, and he hit the post early last night. Look, 12 goals, that's disappointing, especially when he looked me in the eye at training camp and said, 30, yes, this is the year. And I'm not sure he's going to get to 15, but he established a career high in assists last night. He's got 16 games to go on that front. He's not that far off
career high.
60. Well, a 60-point season as well. So, would you like a few more of those, shining moments? Because goals are sexy. They are. But he has sort of morphed into a different player now, and he is more of a playmaker. Rick Tocchet had some pretty harsh criticism, I thought, on the weekend when he said, I need him to forecheck. It can't just be JT Miller, the only guy in on the forecheck. Brock doesn't play a flashy game. And I think sometimes people sort of confuse that with, he's lackadaisical, he doesn't care. I would never go that far. He's just a laid-back guy. Yeah. I do think that over the long haul, if he's going to continue to improve and have success at this level, he is going to have to get in on the forecheck. That he can't be passive the way that he is on a lot of nights. But, talk about crazy statistics. Forget the Chris Kreider thing. The other one that jumped out at me, since Christmas, he's got more power play points than Elias Paterson and Andrei Kuzmenko, which I think would surprise a lot of people. And part of that is that both Paterson and Kuzmenko don't have gaudy power play totals. But no, Brock has had, if you just looked at the bottom line production, I think he's had a reasonably decent season, especially given the slow start with the hand injury and everything else. But we still view him as a goal scorer. You'd like to see him score a few more goals based on the amount that he's been paid. But, all things considered, I think this guy's battled through a fair bit, a couple of coaches this year, and it'll be interesting to see where he tops out because, yes, certainly the chance to have a career season and get to somewhere close to 60 points, all things considered, I don't think that's a terrible number.
Yeah. And very quickly, Jeff, any idea what the Canucks have in Aidan McDonough?
Not really. I've seen film and the highlights like most, but I'll admit that I'm not certainly not a prospect expert. I'll tell you what I am interested, though, in Dunny is who comes out of this lineup to make room for him right now. He's a left shot, so you look at the guys on the left side, but Phil Giuseppe, the coach, loves him. They just committed to him with the contract. He kills some penalties, so I don't know it's as easy as take him out. Does Kravtsov come out? And if so, just like, what does that say about Kravtsov and what they've seen from him? I hope that it's not a guy like Vasily Podkolzin. Wouldn't that be something if a 7th rounder from that draft class takes the spot of the top 10 guy? But I am curious to see who's going to come out. The other thing I was curious about too, and Rick Tocchet said this yesterday, you're really only committed to we're going to get him a game. They got 16 games to go. He's going to join it. I don't know how much we're going to see of him. And Tocchet said, part of it is these guys have played so hard and so well for me. I can't just take guys out of the lineup because. So I'm curious, like everybody else. Look, he had a nice college career. The Canucks getting him signed. That's a good news story for people that thought maybe McDonough would explore free agency. So he's here. He's locked up. He's going to get an opportunity. But it's also, we've seen this before, and Adam Gaudette is sort of the latest one. What you did at college is great. It gets you to the NHL, but it's a whole different world when you're playing in the best league on the planet. And so, I've tempered my expectations, but I want to see this guy. There's high hopes for him. So we'll see how many games he gets into here down the stretch.
Now, once during that entire segment, did you pout? You didn't slouch? Jeff, we can't thank you.
I'm a chronic sloucher. Look at these shoulders, Donnie.
Same here.
Yeah.
But
no good attitude. You've always had a good attitude, Jeff.
Well, come on. I mean, following the hottest team in the National Hockey League, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah. You're not negative.
How can you not be positive? Jeff, thanks for this. Next week, we'll talk to you.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Jeff Paterson, Sekeres Price.